a news blackout. Everything we hear on the television, on the radio, is about the Affordable Care Act, about Obamacare, about the computers not working, so on and so forth. But surely things are happening in the Middle East. What's happening with Israel, with Iran, with their nuclear program?
Well, I indeed believe it is the quiet before the storm. And, we have been receiving reports and issuing reports from Israel that the Iranians basically are 30 days away from a nuclear weapon. I personally would believe that the Iranians already have nuclear weapons. But the question is, will Prime Minister Netanyahu make that fateful decision to go in and take out the nuclear program of Iran? Now, of course, it has to be emphasized again and again and again. The Iranian people are not the enemy. The Iranian people are not the target. And if, God forbid, but probably so, that Israel will have to take out the nuclear project, all precautions will be taken not to harm civilian population. I personally believe that there will be two outcomes to any attack on Iran. Number one, the Iranian military will launch missiles in massive numbers at Israel. Number two, Hezbollah in Lebanon has tens of thousands of rockets. Syria may or may not launch missiles into Israel. And then, of course, the Palestinians will see this as an opportunity to start a third intifada. I don't have to tell you what I believe, that, God is in control. Brother Hutch says that in every show. Lord is in control, But it's going to be a very hectic time, and we could wake up tomorrow morning and see that this happened. It could happen any time. The second thing I believe, and this could be perhaps the most important outcome of any Israeli air attack on the nuclear project, and that is a rebellion by the Iranian people against the Ayatollah regime, which has brought great catastrophe to the Iranian people, who are a good people. We love the Iranian people. They were our allies under the Shah. The Bible, they were our allies. If you remember, Cyrus sent the Jews home to rebuild the temple and sent his army to defend us. We do not have a problem with the Iranian people. Just as today, we do not have a problem with German people. The problem was with Hitler. So this is something that I think we are now in the quiet before the storm. This morning I was, every morning I wake up, the first thing I do when I make my coffee is I put on the Israeli radio on my computer. And it's unbelievable that nobody is talking at all about the civil war in Syria. We are seeing the complete desolation of Syria. We are seeing the Syrian military and the Al-Qaeda destroying each other's cities. You have Hama and Homs with the rebels, and then you have other areas which are with the Shiites and the government. Damascus will not be destroyed in a day, but it will be destroyed over a period of time, because both sides are destroying Damascus in the process of their civil war. Complete insanity that only Satan could bring into the hearts and souls of these people, who I would say, Syrians are like any other people. They're probably good people. And this idea of Shiites and Sunnis killing each other, and both sides killing Christians, which is, witnessing a Holocaust in the Middle East today. The Middle East is becoming a desolation, and what I see is a Holocaust, and I talk about this every night when I speak in churches, a new Holocaust against 15 million Christians in the Middle East. That's Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq. And, of course, the U.S. government does not talk at all about the annihilation of Christians. On the contrary, the U.S. government today is backing the Al-Qaeda and Jabhat al-Nusra, who are the fanatic Sunnis coming to kill the Christians. And one of the ironic things is indeed that Bashar al-Assad, backed by the Iranians, is defending the Christians. So everything is topsy-turvy. It seems like nothing makes sense. And that's Satan.
I'm glad it makes sense in God's heart and God's mind. But when you speak about Iran, about a month ago, President Obama actually spoke to the Iranian leaders about the Christian pastor Saeed Abedini. But I think Obama was rebuffed, because now they've taken Pastor Abedini out of Evin prison and they put him in a worse place. I understand this is, when you go there, that's it. So obviously the Ayatollahs are still very entrenched and they're not listening to anyone.
It's very important to stress that in addition to the persecution of Christians in Iran, you have today, let's look at the Muslims, the Shiites who live in Iran. You have the highest unemployment rate ever in Iran's history. You have the highest percentage of HIV and drug use, highest percentage of suicides ever. The Ayatollah regime is destroying the people of Iran. there must be a regime change. And this whole question of nuclear project is, in my opinion, secondary. I think it's going to be the catalyst for the overthrow of the regime. And so it may be indeed that Israel will have to do it. You know, I remember from day one, I'm talking about 4 or 5 years ago, President Obama said that all the cards are on the table, and the U.S., if it needs to, will use the military option. All of a sudden, I'm hearing today Obama has absolutely no intention of attacking Iran, which means that Obama has been lying all along to Israel, lying all along to the American people. Wait, we'll do this together. Wait, you know. And, you know, my wife Rachel monitors the broadcast in Arabic, and she heard many times from the Saudis, who are Sunnis, that President Obama is a Saudi plant. And I recommend to all your listeners to go to Saudi Plant on YouTube. It's about me and my wife, where we picked up these broadcasts, that he is a Muslim. He has 3 primary tasks as a Saudi Manchurian candidate. Number 1, destroy the Shiite regime in Iran, which we all agree about. Number 2, destroy Israel, which none of us agree about. And destroy Christian America and turn Christian America into a Muslim country, which of course no one in his right mind would agree with. Now, if President Obama said in his book that he would never attack another Muslim country, that means he will not go to war against Iran, which we see happening now, manifesting itself now. So Israel will have to do it. Now, if President Obama does not go to war against Iran, and he says let Israel do it, this is a wonderful thing for Obama, because let the useful idiots duke it out. In other words, let Israel attack Iran, let Iran and the Shiites and then the Palestinians, who are Sunnis, counterattack against Israel, and let the Shiite regime in Iran and the Israeli government basically self-destruct, and then 2 out of his 3 commands have been fulfilled. And President Obama comes out smelling roses. And the third part, and it's been happening over the last 40 years, is the infiltration by stealth of 30 million Muslims into the U.S. over the last 40 years. And President Obama, I predict, will bring into this country another 50 million Muslims over the coming years. And that's going to happen. You know why? Because the Muslims are killing the Christians in Egypt. The Christians are the economy. You kill the Christians, you kill the economy, you kill the economy. The 80 million Muslims who remain will starve. The 80 million Muslims who starve are going to leave, and most of them are going to come to the U.S. And America will see an influx of 50 million Muslims in addition to the 30 million that are already here. And so America will go from being the greatest Christian country in the world to the greatest Muslim country in the world.
Well, that sounds like a developing scenario which we can actually see occurring right before our eyes. Now, you really brought up something that I've always been concerned about, and I know other Christians who have been raising the question. You've said that in Iran at the present time, HIV is the highest it's ever been. Drug use, the economy is bad.
Prostitution, suicide.
Well, two questions. Number 1, doesn't a very strict religion stop that kind of thing? Why aren't those people upright and moral? Number 2, how close are we to a revolution against the Iranian Ayatollahs?
Well, the first question is, on the surface, these Ayatollahs are very strict. But, you know, you got 70 million people in Iran. And what people do in their private bedrooms or their privacy of their homes, you know, the Ayatollahs really cannot control that. And indeed, when you have an anger among the people against a strict religious regime, or forgive me, God, for saying religious, because these people are not religious, they're Satanists. But you have, let's say Nazis. You have a Nazi system, and people who are good people are going to hide what they're doing from the eyes and ears of the big brother Nazi. That's the first thing. Second thing, when will there be a rebellion? You know, I have to tell you something. The Arab Spring began in February 2011. But in 2009, in the very first year of Obama's presidency, you had an Arab Spring. It was called the Persian Spring, and it was suppressed with the deaths of many thousands of people, the arrests and deaths and torture of thousands of people. President Obama could have done something about it. President Obama did nothing about it. And so I think that it's very hard for the Iranian people to rise up without outside help to overthrow the Ayatollah regime. Now, what may happen, as I said before, that if and when Israel attacks the nuclear program of Iran, that will trigger, that'll be the catalyst for the Iranian people to rise up again. I have heard, and I imagine it's true to this day, that you have inside of Iran special forces of the, I imagine Americans. I heard British have SAS. The Israelis have agents in Kurdistan. You know, you have the Iraqi Kurdistan and the Iranian Kurdistan. That border is very porous. You've got all kinds of foreign forces on the ground in Iran. And it may be at a certain time that there will be a rebellion backed by special forces on the ground already in Iran.
I've often thought that President Obama has projected such a weak image. For example, Pastor Abedini is actually an American citizen. He's not an Iranian. Well, he has dual citizenship. So here we have an American citizen, and I know that the eyes of the Middle East are watching. Our president has done very, very little, if anything, other than make a protest, which really doesn't have much weight. Do you think our president is casting the wrong image? For example, you've probably heard that recently many U.S. generals have been retired. It almost seems as though Mr. Obama has a war against our military and wants to weaken our sources. So is this something that the Muslims, both Sunni and Shiites in the Middle East, are picking up on and saying, well, you guys are nothing but a paper tiger?
It's not a paper tiger. The president is not sending the wrong message. He's sending the right message. The right message is that America is becoming a Muslim country, which means, you know, in addition to, I mean, I feel terrible for Pastor Abedini, but what does America say about the annihilation of 15 million Christians in Syria, Egypt, Iraq, and Iran, and Lebanon? So, you know, we're talking about a U.S. president. Not only is he not talking about the annihilation of the Christians, he's supporting the annihilation of the Christians by backing the Jabhat al-Nusra and the Al-Qaeda in Syria to kill the Christians. He's backing the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. So you tell me, it would be out of character for him to fight for Abedini if he's calling for the Muslims to kill Abedini.
So this is all very deliberate and fits within the plan that he has. Now, it's not for our good or for the betterment and safety of America, but certainly for his plan.
I'll add another thing also. You know, I'm Jewish, but I preach every night in Christian churches of all denominations. And I ask the Christians, one of the first things I ask in the church is, do you know that if you're a Christian, you're a terrorist? Raise your hand. And everyone raised their hands, because today in America is no longer a Christian country. America today is an anti-Christian country. And if you consider yourself a Christian, you will be targeted as a terrorist by the Obama agenda. If you are a Bible-believing Jew or Christian, you are mentally insane. That's what the world, what the world, you know, the world agenda is saying. What's what the Obama agenda is saying. That believing the Bible, you know, believing in God is kind of a mental handicap for people. But why would he not fire generals if they are Christian? Because Christians are terrorists.
Yeah, and if they make statements that are pro-America, want to, you know, defend America, stand strong for American values, patriotism, U.S. exceptionalism, they're really the enemy and the terrorists. Well, Avi, you've got some up-to-date information about the Oklahoma City bombing. I know that's never, in my mind and in the mind of many of our listeners, has never really been adequately resolved. There's a lot of loose ends. Tell us, what have you found out, and how is this scenario developing?
Well, indeed, I wanted to plug at least 2 of my 6 books. I wanted to plug all my 6 books. But Book 1 and Book 3 talk about the Oklahoma City bombing, and indeed we have been receiving reports, even on Fox News, that, you know, that, for example, remember TW 800? And, you know, Bill Clinton came out with this poppycock lie that there was this fuel injection explosion, when the fact is that it's been proven beyond any doubt that it was a Saddam Hussein missile because of the puncturations in the side of the plane, and the wing was actually severed by the anti-aircraft missile. And so what it shows is that Bill Clinton, who was president also during the time of the Oklahoma City bombing, covered up the Oklahoma City bombing, which was a Saddam Hussein state terrorism attack. Just as TW-800 a year later was a Saddam Hussein state terrorism attack. And it has to be emphasized, and it's in both of my books, that Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols were not wacko, Waco, Christian white right-wing militiamen. They were either Muslims or they were turncoats who served in Desert Storm and witnessed the annihilation of 200,000 Iraqi troops by the U.S. And allies. And so they therefore wanted to punish the U.S. government for what they perceived as the annihilation of 200,000 Saddam Hussein soldiers, and they are the ones who perpetrated the attack. They were working with Saddam Hussein. There were videotapes of Iraqi Army Republican Guard soldiers in Oklahoma City who purportedly were received in this country as refugees from Saddam Hussein, you know, who had received asylum but they were actually sent by Saddam Hussein to punish America for what America did, as foreseen in the eyes of the Iraqis, to the Iraqi people. For example, I was in Tulsa when the bomb went off in Oklahoma City. And my Christian friends in Sepulpa told me that their parents live in McPherson, Kansas, and that there was a local report on the McPherson News, I think it was CBS, that the merchant who sold the ton and a quarter of ammonium nitrate sold it to 3 Middle Eastern men, and that they paid cash, which is unusual because farmers usually give a check or on credit. They took the ammonium nitrate in 100-pound reinforced paper bags, which makes no sense if you're a farmer, but it makes all the sense in the world if you're making a bomb. And then the next day, there was a call, and they were Arabic-speaking Middle Easterners. Then the next day, the FBI appeared under orders from Clinton and told them to confiscate the interview, tell the merchant to change his story for reasons of national security. It wasn't national security, it was cover-up. And it was covered up. So all this I received from Christians from whom I have no reason to doubt. Also, you know that that first day there was talk about 3 Middle Eastern men. I received the Israeli newspaper Yediot Ahronot the next day, which my father sent me from New York 2 days later, and a very, very high-level journalist by the name of Chaim Shibi, who's, by the way, my next-door neighbor also in Jerusalem. I know the guy. Wrote an article about 3 Middle Eastern men who made a clean getaway in the second Ryder van from Oklahoma City to Dallas, and they escaped from Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. A third cross-referenced proof is CNN, the virtue of truth. CNN came out with a public service announcement on behalf of the FBI, which was aired only once, and I think by mistake, asking the public to help find the local Oklahoma driver who was a witness to the 2 Ryder vans being pulled over by the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. And when they were handcuffing McVeigh in one van, the 3 Middle Easterners in the other van made a clean getaway. I know people in Oklahoma City like Charles Key, you know, who had character assassination committed against them because they were trying to tell the truth. There is a woman by the name of Jana Davis who worked for Channel 4 here in Oklahoma City, and they committed character assassination against her, and I think she had to leave town.
I believe so. She had a large book which was thoroughly researched. I remember reading it several years ago, and she suddenly disappeared from view. It seems to me that there is so much lying going on at the level of the federal government. For example, just look at Obamacare. All kinds of promises were made. You won't lose your insurance.
You can keep your doctor.
When will the American people wake up? That's what I don't understand. What's going on? You think, well, if we're fools one time, we say, well, not again, never again, okay? But it happens repeatedly. We go back to the Clinton administration. It's happening today. It happened in the previous 4 years. What is the situation here? Is it some kind of magic that's befuddled people's minds? I mean, when are we going to wake up? I know you're awake, I'm awake, our listeners are awake, but we need more people. We especially need Republicans in Congress who are not rhinos, Republicans in name only, but who are truly standing for conservative principles. What's happening in our country?
Well, you know, I'm going to answer your question in a moment, but I'm going to come from another direction entirely, and I'm going to show you how I fear President Obama is going to ride this whole storm out. Now, I want to ask you a question. How much is your debt? $17 trillion?
Oh, yeah, at least that. I mean, you know, I'm a big spender.
Is that a problem?
With me, it would be.
Well, is it a problem for the Saudis?
Not for the Saudis.
Saudis have $17 trillion under the mattress, right? So theoretically, I'm giving you a very long story, very short. When you get 50 million Egyptians, Muslims, coming to live in America, and you have to build 50 million homes, you know, I'm just giving ballpark figures here. They sound fantastic and strange, but it's the fulfillment of Ezekiel 29, that Egypt will become a desolation, that no animal, no human will tread in the Nile River Valley for 40 years, that all the Egyptians are going to be scattered to the 4 corners of the earth. So if they're going to be scattered to the 4 corners of the earth, guess which country is going to take in the greatest number of Muslims? It's going to be the U.S. If you bring in 50 million Muslims, you have to provide housing for 50 million Muslims. And you know who's going to pay for it? Saudis. So if the Saudis send all this cash back to the U.S. to build Muslim homes, thereby altering the ethnic balance of the United States population, it'll become a Muslim country. But the 50 million houses are going to create an expansion in the U.S. economy, a boom, and Obama's going to be the savior. You know, I want to tell you something. I spoke about this in the past, and before the second election of Obama, and I said that there was a Christian who came up to me, good man, a solid man, and he said to me, listen, if the price of gasoline goes down to $2.50 a gallon, and I keep my job, I vote Obama. So, you've been driving around Oklahoma City the last few days?
Yes,
How much is gas?
Gone down. Well, Avi, this is so interesting.